The zero risk way to launching a business this year. Hey everyone, I'm Howard Kingston, entrepreneur, marketer, and co-founder of Growth Velocity Academy. So you want to launch a business. What is a zero risk way that you can launch a company and get money into the business as fast as possible? Money is important. All right. So let's just have a quick chat about that, because when you're launching a company, you ultimately you need some capital into it. Now, I was having a coaching call with one of our students and members at Growth Velocity Academy, and she's about to leave her successful corporate job to launch her own company. And one of the questions she had was, like, how do I want to make sure I have money in the business? I don't want to raise investment. How else can I make sure that I have money? Because I don't want to be worried about money when I'm launching my company. And you know what? Like, that's a very legitimate question to ask. So what we talked about, we talked about a couple of things, and I just thought it would be very useful because I know there's so many of you wanting to launch companies. And I want to talk in this episode about 3 ways to think about your money when you're launching a company. Now, maybe you're in the process of launching a company, maybe you're already there, or maybe you're just, someday you're going to do it. So let me talk about the way that I like to think about your money when you're launching a company. So tip number 1 is the runway, people, the runway. So what's a runway? A runway is just like in an airport, a plane takes off, all right? And it's got it takes off on a runway. What happens when it runs out of runway? Well, you don't want to be on a plane when it runs out of runway and it hasn't taken off yet, right? So this analogy is exactly the same. So a runway, you'll hear people in, entrepreneurs and, venture capitalists talk about runway, and it's essentially, it's an element of time. All right. So whereas in an airport, a runway is maybe measured in meters, an entrepreneur's runway will be measured in time. Okay. Because really think about it, like, you're smart, right? Given enough time, you will figure out what you're trying to do. So whatever type of business, I'm confident you will figure it out, but you need time to figure it out. Need time to maybe go and figure out how to sell things, how to build the product, how to market the product, stuff like that. So you need time. So the equation for a entrepreneur's runway, what is an entrepreneur's runway? So here, if you have a piece of paper, just take this down. An entrepreneur's runway is monthly costs, as in how much it costs you to live. Maybe, rent, maybe food, basic costs. Like, guys, if you're just starting a business, you probably don't want to be splashing out on luxury holidays. If that's your thing, fair enough, but it's going to push up your cost base, right? But what is the minimum you need to live every month? Okay, so that's your monthly cost base divided by your annual, what you actually have in your bank account. Sorry, not your annual, divided by the total amount that you have cash available. Okay. So if you think about that, let's just say, for example, it is like your monthly cost base is 2,000. Okay. And the amount you have in your bank account in your savings or whatever is 10,000. That means you have 5. That equals 5. And 5 equals the number of months you have to survive, even if you make 0 sales. Okay? Even if you make 0 sales. Now, that's a runway. That's a good thing to think about because, sometimes sales take a bit longer to come in, and you don't want to be in the mindset that you're really worrying about money. All right. It's just not a good mindset for an entrepreneur who wants to take over the world and grow a world-changing business. That's not a great mindset to have when you're launching something. All right. It just makes you, you don't want that. So I always in my personal I love a 12-month runway. Okay. Whenever I was setting up a business in the past, as long as I had a 12-month runway, when I was starting off, I felt really, super confident. Like I was like, 12 months, I will figure this out. Okay. Over 12 months. And obviously as you go into it, maybe sometimes it comes down a bit. And then on a business, you want to have like a runway for business, and you want to have a runway for personal. Personal, when I'm starting a business, 6 to 12 months, 12 months on the top end. You really, more is sure, more is better, but minimum of 6 months, I would think, for me to not to have to worry. Okay. On a business business runway can be shorter, kind of like 3-4 months or whatever. Okay, now that's assuming you don't need to put a huge investment in. Like, obviously, if you're building this like proprietary AI deep tech technology, you may need more capital than that. So that's when you might want to go down the route of actually raising investment. I've done other episodes on tips on how to raise investment, so do check them out if that's your case. All right, but really what I'm just doing here is giving you the concept of this idea of runway. So important. Okay. Tip number 2 is find some funds. Find some funds. Okay. So here's the thing, guys. Now that you've got the idea of runway, now you want to get as much money as you can to help build up that initial runway. And guys, there's loads of pockets for money everywhere. If you think about it, like everyone's talking entrepreneurship. Like imagine starting a business 20 years ago. I remember when I started my first business, like really entrepreneurship, very few people were talking about it, whereas now everyone's talking about it, and every country is promoting entrepreneurs. Why? Because it's good for the economy. So they're always trying to promote you to be an entrepreneur, and most countries I know of, I haven't found one that hasn't got this actually, have some form of kind of incentives to start your own business. It might not be huge, but there's different incentives, right? So it might be a grant, for example. There might be lots of different grants that you can apply for. There might be some special kind of like loans. For example, in the UK, there's something called the Startup Loan Program. Maybe you have some savings, okay, that you've been able to squirrel away. Maybe, a common thing for early stage businesses would be, some friends or family put a little bit of investment in. Maybe there's a startup accelerator that you can join. There's literally hundreds of startup accelerators now. And my businesses have been through a few of them. And they typically give you $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 to start. Now, the thing is, like, where do you find about these? Because here's the thing, guys, you're the entrepreneur. It's up to you to find these things. No one's going to come and put it on your plate. All right. That's the thing. Like, I hear people so many times like, oh, there was none. I couldn't find any. I'm telling you, they are there. I am telling you, there are startup accelerators that take businesses from anywhere in the world. There are programs and grants in your country, in your city. You just need to look for them. And, think about it. Like, you might go, oh, there's none. I've never seen any. Let's be honest. Let's just have some real talk here. How long have you spent Googling grants for entrepreneurs, grants for startups, grants for insert the type of business that you're trying to build, whether it's like, AI, or grants for art, or whatever business you're trying to launch. And also Googling things like supports for startups, supports for entrepreneurs, things like that. Like, how long have you spent? And if the answer is, oh, actually not much, or, oh, I did one Google once and that was it. No, you're just like, guys, this stuff is hard. Like, of course it's hard. You have to dig in. You have to spend time. You got to constantly be looking. And this stuff won't fall on your plate. So listen, that's fine. If you're not willing to put the work in, that's fine. But then when we're chatting, don't say, oh, there was nothing. That's easy. I couldn't find any grants. Well, you didn't look hard enough. They are there. And your success is going to be about you overcoming the adversity that you need to make this business a success. I just want to make that super, super clear. Like, you see all these Instagram entrepreneurs, champagne entrepreneurs, like, oh, it's so easy, I'm working from the beach. Like, I'm telling you, it takes grit, it takes graft. You got to push through the stuff. And part of this is you finding these opportunities. Okay. With that said, I want to give you some places. What I do is even now, like, I constantly keep an eye on these things. And then also, I always like to subscribe to a certain number of newsletters, because there's some newsletters that tend to kind of, if there's some good grants or some good accelerators launching, they kind of feature them. All right. So one or two places I'd recommend is there's one called F6S. F6S. Okay. F spelt F6S. Okay. And that is just like this platform for accelerators and different support for startups. Check that out. Almost every accelerator is in there. Two, there's a few different newsletters that kind of collect a lot of grants. There's one called, in the UK now, I'm based in the UK, so this is more UK focused. So if you're completely international, this one might not be as relevant for you, called Capital Enterprise. Definitely check that one out. Anywhere you are globally, there's something called Startup Digest. Check that out. It's owned by the Techstars guys, Startup Digest. But like, there's more. And like, you might say, oh, I looked up those three and there's nothing there for me. Well, then find yours. Whatever industry you're in, I'm telling you, there are newsletters that collect the different grants and different opportunities. And there's also places in your local city that have that. Go down and check and speak to your local, business commerce organization, and ask these questions. You got to dig in, all right, because the money's out there. And the reality is, if it is, let's go back to the Runway idea. Let's say I want 10,000 because that would give me 6 months runway or 5 months runway. Cool. The reality is, you might have one that will come from multiple places. So you might have like 1,000 in savings. You might get 1,000 from friends and family. You might get 3,000 from a grant. You might get 1,000 from a loan. Like, can you see how you put it all together? And then you've got the money that you need to. Just don't take no for an answer. Okay. And then tip number 3 is get a side hustle going. Now, what do I mean by side hustle? A side hustle is if you're really worried about, de-risking the whole business idea so you can earn some money and all the rest, maybe keep your day job for a while, or keep some freelancing going that keeps some money coming in, even if it's not a huge amount. Maybe you work for 1 or 2 days a week, kind of freelancing, while the rest of the time you have a side hustle of the actual business that you're launching. All right. That's a way that you can maybe generate a little bit of traction on the new business, and ideally get your first few paying customers into the business, because there's nothing like revenue coming into your new business to give you positive validation that go, you know what, if I spend then more time on this and I get better at this, we're going to make more money. So can you see how that's a really good thing? So the third one is like thinking about this idea for a side hustle. And, I've done side hustling before. It can be tiring because a lot of time you have to work either early. I used to get up early in the morning to do side hustles when I was, when I had my last time I had a job. I remember working late into the night till 1 a.m. and I'd be tired at the weekends. But that's what you got to do. All right. And the benefit is at least there can be an end in sight. You can go, okay, this is tiring, but you know what? I believe in the next 60 days I can make my first, say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,000, whatever that figure is. I say, when I hit that figure, I'm gonna quit my other job. Okay. So tip number 3 is side hustles. Okay. So guys, in this episode, I was sharing about a coaching call I was having with one of my marketing clients, and we were talking about how she's about to launch her business and she's about kind of worried about having the right amount of money in the bank. And I just thought it was a really useful lesson. There'll be so many of you wanting to do the same path this year. And those 3 things I'd really think about. Remember that runway idea. So important. Every day, it's constantly in my mind. 2, source of funds. You can pull together little bits of money from everywhere. Like even in 2021, I got a grant from Facebook, for example. We got a grant from Facebook. It was great. Like, you know, you just got to keep your eye out for these things. Tip number 3 is, if in doubt, start a side hustle initially until you make your first sales. Then you're good to go. All right. So guys, as always, my gift to you, if you want to get some further help from me, 2 ways. 1, I deliver free training every single week. Check the link below so you can get free access to help you become a better entrepreneur, a better marketer, a better leader. And if you'd like some more one-on-one help, I've asked my marketing team to open up some slots, and you can click the link below this episode, book yourself in for a one-on-one call, game plan call, where my marketing team will help you plan out your year, completely free charge for anybody that is listening to this episode. All right. So guys, please do share this with anybody who is starting something this year, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.